Welcome to another week of our Indie Dev Showcase, where each Wednesday I make these spotlight videos showcasing 6 of the many indie games we play here on Game Wisdom. Unless I otherwise say it, these were all played with press keys, and we are always looking for new games to show off. And if you're interested, please reach out. For our first game, this is Mech Engineer. This was played as a demo during the Summer Festival, and this is one of those concepts that you will either be immediately interested in, or you're going to skip ahead to the next game as soon as I say it. But this, as the name implies, is essentially like creating mechs, but taken to, the most grindy or most grognardy, janky way you could imagine. So you are designing everything basically piece by piece, weapon by weapon. You have to properly insert the reactor, make sure the power cores in the reactor work right. You have to make sure that energy is getting to all the parts. And this is a game that it is not about high stakes thrills. And there are other games I think out there now that do kind of go for very more actiony, with the mech building maybe as an afterthought or not as complicated. So I guess this is the game for somebody who really enjoyed building mechs in something like Steel Division or Armored Core, and is more concerned about that as opposed to the actual running of them. Now the game does feature combat and kind of this persistence or global sim layer to how you're trying to fight back against, I think, evil invading aliens, alien bugs, something along those lines. But I didn't quite get that far. I didn't really get to see too much of it during our play. But the major problem with this game is definitely onboarding. It is, quite frankly, terrible. I don't remember there was even any tutorial to this game, but I spent way too long fumbling around trying to figure out how things work. And right now, you're probably wondering why you don't hear any music. That's not because of any issues on this end. This game just doesn't have any music, or it's very low at the moment. The concept, I think, definitely has merit, but for this game to stick out, it needs to be made more approachable. And I don't know what the game has been done, or what has been done to the game since it officially hit early access earlier in 2021. But, like I said, this is one of those concepts that, if it interests you in the slightest, I would say check it out and see if it works for you. If it doesn't, then just stay far away, because it's not going to make you a fan of this kind of design. We now go from something quiet to something a bit on the loud side, with 9 Monkeys of Shaolin. This is a beat-em up. And the footage you're seeing is from a demo that we played. And this one definitely has some merit to it. So the game is pitched as a spiritual successor to the classic beat-em-ups like Streets of Rage and so on, where the hook of this one is having a more in-depth combat system. While it's nowhere near, I think, the level of technical depth as something like Fight and Rage, but it's definitely, I think, a step above some of the other beat-em-ups that we've seen. So the story is supposed to follow, I think, something, kind of based in historical, but definitely not exactly completely realistic. And our combat involves using the different kinds of bow staffs, or just staffs in general, as our fighting tools. So you can do strikes, thrusts, jump attacks, special moves. You have a special meter that you can see in the upper left. And of course, you can dodge around like a crazy fool like I just did. And the game can be played with co-op, and there is persistent or unlocks of a skill tree that unlocks new moves, gives you more combos, and all that good stuff that we know from later day beat-em-ups. If there were anything that I would call like a problem or issues with the game, one thing is that, as with games of this kind, it's very easy for enemies to mob you, as you saw there, and you don't necessarily have too many options, at least at the start, to break up groups or get in with an attack. Later enemies do get access, or you'll run into uninterruptible attacks, boss fights, and things along those lines. And this will be, I think, a fun one to try co-op. So, other than that, I definitely have an interest in checking this one out, maybe when it goes on sale, if I get a press key for it. And as a fan of beat-em-ups, I'm always looking for another one to play. So if you're somebody like me who likes Streets of Rage, Fight and Rage, River City Girls, anything that involves beating up lots and lots of guys, as you see right here, then definitely check out the 9 Monkeys of Shaolin. For our next game, this is Gripper. This was played as a prologue edition that's available on Steam. And this game definitely has some, no pun intended, interesting hooks to it. So the concept is, this is kind of like a story-driven take off of Renegade Ops, if you remember that game from Avalanche Studios, with a hint or mix of Borderlands, absurdity, Mad Max kind of design. So the story from what we could play is that you play as a sibling, and they're trying to live in the, of course, post-apocalypse, when something bad happens and we are forced to go save our sister. And of course learn all manner of important life lessons and emotionally distressing times. Now the key mechanic of Gripper here is that you have your hook attached to the back of your car, and you are able to use that to grab and fling things at various enemies. So as you can see, I ripped off that leg, and I can then toss it or use it in something else. Now, health is defined by water and finding resources in the area. And you're going to get upgrades, at least from what we saw in the prologue. The interesting thing about the prologue was that it was designed to skip to various different parts, so we didn't really get a complete picture of what a standard level of the game looks like. Now, the main issue that I have with this game is that it is a little clunky to control. Again, you are controlling a vehicle, not a person, which means that you have to maneuver and steer around. So it's kind of like very basic tank-like controls in that aspect. And some of the boss fights can become very frustrating as you're trying to aim with your hook, avoid shots, and get the exact pull that you need in order to then do damage. Because if it doesn't lock onto it at the right time, you're not going to be able to get those hits off. With that said, the game definitely has some interesting aspects to it. The story is different. There's some surprisingly dark scenes. And the game does kind of like a picture-in-picture for how a lot of the cutscenes and things interact with each other. And there is a decent amount of variety with the challenges and the upgrades that you get. The game hints at having choices at different story moments. I don't know how much that's actually going to impact things. But I would say give this one a check, especially since a prologue is available, and see what you think of it. And I'll be curious to maybe pick this one up or check it out when it's released later in 2021. With that said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have 3 more games to look at for this spotlight. And now for a quick thank you to our current Patreon supporters. And if you're interested in my books on design, they are available at most major retailers. 20 Essential Games to Study is for first-time developers looking to be inspired, and the Game Design Deep Dive series covers the history and philosophy of major genres, with horror coming later in 2021. Up now, we turn to Noch. This was another demo, and this one is one of those games I think you could go either way in terms of either amazing or very clunky. So, this is a survival horror adventure game that can also be played co-op. The story is that the world is basically doomed, and we are traveling to try and find the one person who could possibly stop it, either by magic or by killing them. And of course, we have lots of surreal imagery and crazy effects to go along with it. Now, from what we played in the demo, there appears to be kind of slight variations or different ways of solving puzzles based on what items you pick up, what you use at any given time, etc., etc. The UI is a little bit clunky, as you can see with the fact that I can only hold 5 items at one time, and then it's just a matter of swapping them in and out of various storage areas. Now, we couldn't show off the co-op side of things, but while it may not look it just yet, there is combat in Noch. And when that occurs, you'll have to use the weapons you have, or even your fists, to fight off these various enemies. And again, like, the visual design of the game I think is really striking, and it definitely does kind of help sell the surrealism. My concern from playing this demo is that it feels like a lot of different ideas going on, and I don't know just how well they're all really are implemented. As you can see with me slow-mo baseball batting demon wolves here. Now, if I was playing this co-op, then a buddy can revive me if I am killed, but I think in single player, if you run out of health, you are dead. And like I said, very interesting idea, and I just don't know, again, playing just the demo, whether or not it goes beyond that in terms of giving you different choices or just how complicated the puzzles or general exploration get. If you are looking for something very different, and don't mind, I guess, some weird imagery that goes with it, then give this one a check, and let me know what you think about this for those of you who played the finished version. With that, we turn to Shores Unknown. This was played again during the festival, and it is available on early access now. So this is a tactical RPG where obviously choices matter, and a lot of your decision making will come back to affect the story and progress. Now, the key kind of twist to this game compared to some of the other ones that we've seen is that combat is essentially order driven, and then it becomes hands off. So each character that you control, you decide what their action is going to be, and then they're going to decide what they're going to do during that phase of combat. So if you tell them to do a healing spell, they're going to target, or they'll try to prioritize someone who needs to be healed. If you tell them to do a sweeping attack, they're going to try to go near somebody who is best suited or best way to get hit by it. Now, the game features kind of like a very low poly kind of style to it that it looks okay, but didn't really stand out too much from when we played it. Now, the other aspect of combat is that everything that your character can do is dictated both by gear and what abilities you assign them. And abilities are unlocked as they do more with certain weapons and do things during combat. So this is one of those games where if you keep using a two-hand weapon, you're going to learn two-hand weapon skills. You do healing magic, you'll learn healing abilities, and you get the picture. So I do like that level of customization, but again, you have to keep in mind that you are not completely controlling your characters during combat. It is, again, order-based. Now, from the demo that we played, there does appear to be a lot of game here. You have full exploration of the map, including finding hidden MacGuffins, treasures, etc., while kind of influencing the story in terms of how people respond to you, where you go, and I don't know at this time how much there is in terms of, different endings or different paths through it. My main concern from playing the demo is that I don't know how big of a market there is for this kind of RPG design. Typically when we play games along these lines, we either have full control, as down to exactly how characters move around, or we go for just letting everybody do their own thing and, seeing where the chips fall. So I am curious for those of you watching this who've played this or who are playing it right now, how are things developing with it? It seems like there is potential here, but I am not the big turn-based or standard RPG guy. So I can't exactly tell you this is good, bad, or amazing examples of it. But if this does sound interesting to you, the demo I think should still be available, and I think there is enough here worth checking out. For our final game of this spotlight, we turn to Ah3ad, spelled Ah3ad. Now, this is an itch.io game that was submitted, and I think it is still in early access at the time I'm recording this. And what this essentially is, of course, as you can tell, an endless runner, with the key mechanic being being able to manipulate the field by using different colors. So the blue lets you basically create or get rid of platforms, yellow is kind of a speed up, and your challenge, of course, is not only get through the levels without getting hit, but find the 3 collectible stars to prove your runner superiority. And as the game goes on, it introduces new powers, which, as I think like a great form of onboarding. The first time a power is introduced, it's done automatically for you, and then it becomes unlocked as a toggleable button. And you can't see, but it's kind of in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen right now. So, what we have here is, I think, again, when it comes to runner-style gameplay, there's only so much you can do within the confines of those mechanics, but it seems like a decent idea for this kind of gameplay loop. So if you are looking for another runner puzzle kind of game, give this one a check, but if the whole runner genre just doesn't work for you, then nothing in this game I think is going to change your mind otherwise. But with that said, we're going to wrap up this week's Indie Spotlight here. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you are a developer working on your own game, and you'd like me to take a look at for a future piece or for our Steam store page review show, be sure to get in touch. As always, check out our Discord and Patreon link down below, and come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.